The iPad 3 event recap done by TechSplash 101. Hello guys, Advet here for TechSplash 101, and this is a video of the iPad 3 event recap that took place yesterday at 10:30 a.m. in San Francisco. And we're going to talk about all the things that happened in that event, namely the apps on iOS, the Apple TV, and the iPad 3, and also everything else. Let's get started with the Apple TV. Let's get started with the software update for the new Apple TV. The third generation Apple TV, the 2012 model, will feature an all new software which will be 3.0. What this will offer to you guys is a new software kind of like iOS, as you are seeing on your screen. Um, and it's going to be a very familiar software and OS to you, so you won't feel as if you've never been as if you never experienced this kind of a layout. It's going to be like iOS with the blocks and not tiles like Windows, but just blocks like iOS. So it's going to be very familiar to you, and except for that, there have not been much changes in this new Apple TV model. The new Apple TV will also feature 1080p HD video playback. This means that if you have a streaming website like Netflix or Hulu on the Apple TV, you can stream and play back those videos in 1080p HD if your TV supports it. Also, they're going to give you your movies and TVs from the Apple iTunes Store on your Apple TV in 1080p HD too. Earlier it was 720p HD, now it's going to be upgraded to 1080p HD. Also in the image you can see an iPad and an iPod Touch, as well as on an iPhone. I'm not sure what that really is. I think it's an iPhone. On the iPhone 4S and the iPad 2 and the new iPad 3, you will now be able to AirPlay mirror your iOS device to your Apple TV in 1080p HD or 720p HD. For the iPad 2 is going to be 720p HD. The iPhone 4S 1080p HD, and the iPad 3 is going to be 1080p HD too, although it has a much higher resolution. The Apple TV can't support that resolution, and therefore it's just going to be in 1080p HD. However, 1080p HD is still crisp, and I feel many people are going to enjoy mirroring their iOS devices to the new Apple TV. Just going to talk about the differences between these two Apple TVs, the 2010 and the 2012 model. The size is the same, no changes there. The output resolution for the Apple TV 2010 model was 480p and 720p, whereas for the Apple TV 2012 it's 720p and 1080p. That means it's full HD, and there's no other codec except for 1080p HD supported. Sometimes you can get MPEG for 480p, but that's very rare. In terms of graphics, the Apple TV 2012 model has it's still unknown. On the contrary to the PowerVR SGX 535 for the Apple TV 2010. How much RAM are you going to get with the Apple TV 2012? It's still unknown again, but the storage is going to be 8 GB. Available content is going to be the same for both, and so too the audio codecs. Photo format same, wire network same, Wi-Fi same. Bluetooth is still unknown for the Apple TV 2012. And basically there's nothing else, there's no other difference, so it's not much of an upgrade. The only upgrade is in the areas that I talked about, especially the video codecs. The new Apple TV has H.264 1080p, MPEG 4 480p, and MJPEG 720p, versus the Apple TV 2012 that had everything except for 1080p, and it had 1080p unofficially, but that wasn't real 1080p, that was a make-believe 1080p. But that's all the differences there are between the two models of the Apple TV. Let's move on to the star of the show of yesterday, which is the new iPad. In terms of hardware, the iPad doesn't have many changes. It is just going to be slightly thicker, about a millimeter or so. 9.4 millimeters is the design of the new iPad, and this is what Tim Cook revealed. One of the most talked about features was the Retina display. The pictures that I'm showing you are truly outstanding. Look at this. It has 1 million more pixels than an HD TV, a resolution of 2048 by 1536, which is more than an actual HD TV. This is super HD, really. Although there's no term like that. I mean, It is Super HD. It has got 3.1 million pixels in all. And have a look at these pictures. The text looks so crisp, it's not even funny. And the pictures on this new iPad make your mind go berserk. This is truly wonderful quality of pictures, and the retina display really is something that everyone waited for, and I don't think that anyone is disappointed. In fact, everyone is mighty pleased. We just have to wait and see how this will actually look when you actually get it, because Tim Cook said that you can't actually you won't know how good it is until you actually see it. So therefore we're all waiting for the release of this new iPad. The processor on the new iPad is the A5X and not the A6, which is quad core. We're going to have a dual core iPad, but we're going to have quad core graphics. That's very important. Quad core graphics, but a dual core iPad. And I mean, you can't compare it to a Transformer Prime, which is an Android tablet, which is quad core, but the iPad is dual core. However, it's got quad core graphics, and therefore, you do a speed test. I'm pretty sure the iPad 3 will go ahead and trump the Transformer Prime, even though it is supposedly quad core with NVIDIA's Tegra 3. However, the iPad features the A5X processor, as I said, and it is designed for the Retina display according to the Apple CEO and the spokespeople. The new iPad is going to feature 4G LTE from Verizon and AT&T. Also, is going to feature Bell, Rogers, and Telus in Canada, and they're also going to offer 4G LTE speeds. In the UK, you're going to get 3G from Vodafone and Orange. However, I think they may be the same thing. I'm not familiar with the UK's layup. But yes, 4G LTE speeds, as promised, are going to be on the iPad. Battery life on the iPad HD or iPad 3 is going to be 10 hours on normal usage and 9 hours on 4G, which is the same as the iPad 2, which has 10 hours on normal usage and 10 hours on 3G. And this iPad has 9 hours on 4G, so really it's well done by Apple again. No one ever complained about the battery life on the iPad 2, and I don't think anyone's going to complain about the battery life on the iPad 3. It's always been exceptional on the iPad, and the way it looks, it's going to stay the same way. We should all be thanking God because the camera on the iPad 3 is improved. It is a new 5 megapixel camera, the same as the iPhone 4. However, it supports 1080p HD video recording like the iPhone 4S, which also has the same image stabilization while recording your videos. And also, it's going to have a new FaceTime camera, which is not a great upgrade. It's still VGA, but it's the highest form of VGA. I think it's going to be 1.3 megapixels. Definitely not what we wanted for video on the front facing camera, because that's what we're going to use the iPad camera the most. Apple, why don't you get it? It's not like we're going to carry a device which is 9.7 inches and go and make ourselves look like fools while recording video on an iPad 3 on the road. I mean, yes, you could use that sometimes if you don't want to take your video camera with you, but the front camera is what everyone uses for FaceTime, and it's still VGA. It's not going to look good at all on such a high resolution. Apple needs to really get to know that. A feature that we were all looking forward to on the iPad was going to be Siri. However, that wasn't ported from the iPhone 4S onto the iPad 3, unfortunately. However, they have added Siri dictation. That doesn't mean it's going to be full functionalities of Siri. It's just going to be when you're typing on your keyboard, you can just press that dictation button and you can it's basically speech to text. So there's not going to have Siri, but Apple has promised in a statement they will be porting Siri to the iPad 3 on a future software update. So you could keep your hopes up. However, I'm not sure that's going to happen. Finally, the price point for the new iPad is going to be $499 for the 16GB model, which is Wi-Fi only, $599 for the 32GB Wi-Fi only, $699 for the 64GB Wi-Fi only, 629 for the 16GB Wi-Fi plus 4G, 729 for the 32GB Wi-Fi plus 4G, and 829 for the 64GB Wi-Fi plus 4G. All the prices are in US dollars, and I'm not sure about the other prices. Also, Apple released iOS 5.1. That is another upgrade for iOS. It's going to have a lot of bug fixes as well as a couple of new nice features. If you are on AT&T, you can get HSPA plus 4G speeds for your iPhone 4S on 5.1. That's going to be pretty good, but let's see how it pans out in the end. Also, Apple released iPhoto for the iPad as well as updates to GarageBand, iMovie, and a couple of other things related to iLife. If you want to get those, they are in the App Store right now. You can go and get them for your iPad too, as well as your iPhone 4S. And I'm not going to be talking about that in too much detail. Apple also released a new version of iTunes, which is iTunes 10.6, and in this version of iTunes, it supports 1080p HD playback for your Apple TV. Nothing much. In conclusion to this event, the star of the show really was the iPad 3, along with its amazing components. There were some disappointments, especially Siri, as well as not the name of the iPad, which is the iPad HD or the new iPad. It's not the iPad 3. That's a huge disappointment. It's kind of like the iPhone 4S and the iPhone 5 saga that happened last year on October 14th. But we can learn to deal with it. It's still got a couple of great features. Apple TV, not a big upgrade, but yeah, not bad. And iTunes 10.6 and iOS 5.1 are available today for download. Also, if you want to watch this iPad 3, watch the iPad 3 keynote, you could do that. The link is in the description, and you can watch the whole keynote